to give you all a really in-depth explanation of what this program is. And the program started many years ago, and it was really from listening to graduates and listening to parents who said, we're struggling with places to stay and places to go and places to shop and places to eat. And so we did some research with other colleges and their neighboring communities, and we found out we took all the best practices. We actually visited many different places, and so it's going to be really interesting to see where we can take this. Erin has done an incredible job of taking this program on, and she's quite qualified to do it. If there's anyone who breathes tenacity and persistence and leadership, it's Erin Helly, an engineer officer by trade who tackled sapper school successfully and then went on to command an infantry company. She really has quite a resume. She created, when she decided to leave the service, she created, from an entrepreneur's perspective, she created her own company and was quite successful there as well. So she has proven that she organizationally knows how to develop a program and make it successful. So that's why she's the perfect fit for this position. So without much further ado, I would like to hand it over so we can spend the majority of our time hearing about this program and having plenty of time for you to ask all those detailed questions that I know you want to ask. All right, Erin.
Thank you so much, Jeanette and Amy and your whole team for this opportunity. I'm pretty excited to be able to present this to you guys with such a long period of time to do it. Normally I do this presentation in like 10 to 15 minutes and leave people usually asking lots of questions and things like that, but we can answer them as we go. So please feel free to drop them in the chat. You'll have to excuse me, I have terrible allergies up here right now. But drop them in the chat or raise your hand and ask as we go, because I think the more interactive this is, the better it will hopefully be. So like Jeanette said, this has been in the works for a couple of years now, probably 5 years or so. It has taken a couple different directions, and right now we are in a position to really work on the infrastructure. So when people say they want more hotels or better restaurants, it's not as simple as just bringing somebody in to build it, right? We have to make sure that the infrastructure is in place. We have to make sure that the community is ready for it and they can support it from the perspective of water and power and all of these things. So we have been navigating those many challenges for a number of years. But I'm going to start at the beginning. This slide here shows what our mission and our vision is. So you can see in here the mission to build partnerships to engage the Hudson Valley, elevate Highland Falls, and enhance the West Point experience. And then our vision being about activating partnerships. That is critical, obviously, to our effort. And we've really learned that the more people we can bring in, the more stakeholders, and there are many. There are so many here that want us to be successful. Not just, of course, our county, but our state and even our federal partners, local partners from the village and the town. One of the complexities that we have here is that we're focused right now in the village of Highland Falls, which is within the town of Highlands, and each of them has a board. So we basically deal with 4 different boards: the town board, the village board, the planning board, and the zoning board. So that is 20 individuals who all come from different walks of life, different experiences and things like that. And we are just kind of navigating this journey with them, because no one that's serving on any of these boards has seen the type of development that we are talking about and that we are bringing right now. So it's been a learning experience for all of us, but it's been really cool to kind of get everybody aligned and bring everybody to the table and discuss the future and vision the future, which is something that hasn't happened here in a really long time. So I would love for you guys to drop in the chat. I can't even really see most of you, but would love to know when the last time you guys were here and what you did when you were in Highland Falls. If you went to a restaurant or where you stayed. or even like the best thing you did maybe when you were here last. I would love for you guys to share. And while they're doing that, Amy, can you go to the next slide, please? Westies. Okay, so obviously, yes, Stan, you're local. So Westies is new. Westies came about in August of last year. Bill, okay, yep. Of course, you've been to Westies. Sean, 2025 for your reunion. Westies. Andy's stayed at the 5-star. Okay, 2 weeks ago. Patton's. Okay. All right, Patton's been there for a long time. All right, so, oh, nice. Westies, Andy's, pizza. Yep, there's lots of pizza around here, that's for sure. Okay, so strategic plan. So what I think I'm most proud of so far is that we are fully embedded into the strategic plan. Oh, nice, Rose. Yep, of course, Westies. Hotel was a half an hour away. Yep, sounds about right. All right, so new strategic plan just came out. I'm sure all of you guys got the email. And we are one of the 7 main strategic objectives. So they're not really like a priority order, but the 6th one is to transform the physical environment for graduates on and off post. And then there's the last one is about activating the convening power of the long gray line. And so I think that our role there is to create the spaces where that convening can happen. And that's been pretty fun to really imagine too. So it's all about strengthening the connection between West Point grads and really the broader community. Next slide, please, Amy. All right, so currently, and so most of you guys have been here recently, which is great. So you kind of know what we're dealing with. So we're dealing with just a first impression and an arrival experience that I think falls short of West Point's standard of excellence. It's just not what it should be. And I think that the experience from the outside the South Gate onto West Point is very disjointed. And this is just a really huge missed opportunity to drive visitors to the Main Street businesses, which can then support the local economy, which would make all of the things that we're doing that much easier. So we know right now there's very old infrastructure and it can hardly support the existing population. Sort of the days are numbered on that. So we have to work on some improvements, especially if we're going to bring in new development. So we're activating all these partnerships, West Point leaderships, and all the various entities on the installation. Of course, the village, the town, Orange County, New York State, and then private and alumni partners. We've been so amazed by the support for this program. And that's why we just want to share what we're doing every opportunity that we can, because we're always finding a great partner. We're always finding someone who can help us with the next thing. And some of you guys are on this call, which is awesome. So what we're looking for, what we're moving to is an end state of just, again, anchoring our community outside the gate and creating this seamless experience from Highland Falls into West Point. And we want there to be some consistent wayfinding. We want to enhance this experience overall. And then I think take it even bigger and have it be a beacon that draws regional tourism. So not just focus on Highland Falls, but focus on Orange County as a whole or the greater Hudson Valley. So we talk a lot about how 1 to 3 million people come to West Point every year, but 78 million people come to the Hudson Valley every year. So we would love to tap into that traffic. And there's so much money for tourism there. So that's one of the things we're thinking about too. So we don't see this as a peripheral effort. We really think that activating Highland Falls is force multiplying, and it helps strengthen our infrastructure, our national security, and West Point's ability to recruit, retain, and inspire the people who define the Academy's excellence today and into the future. And what we mean by that is we hear all the time from like athletics and some of the entities on post that recruiting and more importantly, retention is challenging because there's nowhere to live. There's nowhere for them to go. And then once they do find a place to live, there's not great amenities, there's not great restaurants and things like that. So a lot of people are very interested in what we're doing. All right, next slide, please, Amy. All right, so this is all about activating the economic force multiplier. So we want to turn Highland Falls into a destination. One of the ways we can do that is activating the waterfront, which used to be a marina. It's currently privately owned. we're working on that. I'll share a little bit more about that later. And we want to really position this area as a must-see, as a gateway to West Point, but again, to the whole Hudson Valley, this whole region. And we want to grow regional and national traffic across all modes of travel. On that note, and on the partnership note, Congressman Ryan's office just reached out. He's on like the tourism board, and he asked our CEO, Mark Beeger, to sign a support letter for a big grant going to Stewart Airport to increase, the number of flights and the traffic that comes in and out of there. So we know our grads are really passionate about that. So we, strongly endorsed that. And I think that's just a really good example of the partnerships that we're activating. And, the fact that they're coming and looking to us as sort of an authority here and someone whose voice matters. And we're all just kind of working together. So, okay. So then the other thing is about, it's not just about getting people here. We really need to get them to stay. We already know, again, 1 to 3 million people come here, but they're not staying. And more importantly, they're not spending money. So we want to give them a reason to stay. And we do that by revitalizing Main Street, making it a vibrant, walkable destination, activating dining, retail, and housing, just creating daily energy on Main Street. Because I know some of you guys are really local, but it's kind of a ghost town around here most days out of the year. So I would love it to look like it does on a football Saturday most days of the year. So that's kind of a goal that we have, and just creating this day-to-day vitality and energy. And all of this will help to enhance the quality of life for our residents and for our visitors. And if we can deliver this seamless wayfinding connectivity, this all will, come to fruition and come into play. And so this connectivity goes from Main Street all through South Post, the visitor center, and the marina. So all things in the works. So I mentioned this economic force multiplier. So this sort of data point or stat says that each visitor should spend $8 to $12 when they go to a place, when they visit a place. They buy their cup of coffee or they buy their burger. So for every one of our visitors, hopefully they'll spend $8 to $12 or should spend $8 to $12. So that's 24 to 36 million annually. And we, once that kind of gets cycled through the economic cycle, that becomes a much bigger number. That person, you buy your coffee, and that person who works at the coffee shop then goes and buys their groceries at the grocery store, pays their rent, and it just cycles. And so this could lead to a spend that's somewhere between 50 and 100 million. And then what that ultimately leads to is about 15 to 40 million that could be pushed back into the local community. So let's just go on the very low side of that. $15 million coming into the town of Highlands every year would solve literally all of their problems. And that would be if we just tapped into what's currently coming. So the goal is about that, but also increasing the visitor traffic here too, all of which are great opportunities. So it's about turning visitor volume into real measurable community benefit and prosperity, and strengthening the environment that sustains Orange County's largest employer. I don't know if you guys know that, but West Point is Orange County's largest employer, and probably many other counties too. And again, it helps with recruiting, retention, and sustaining top-tier faculty, staff, and service members. So let's see. Highland Falls hasn't changed. These are not new observations. What has been the reluctance to invest or sell from property owners in the past? Okay, so the reluctance to invest, I think it's a reluctance to change in general. Something that I realized, I don't know, maybe about a year ago, was that ultimately Highland Falls does not believe in itself. The community doesn't believe in themselves. They don't believe that they're worthy of it. They don't think that they deserve to have a thriving community. They probably don't realize that, but every time that we bring a new opportunity or a new idea, we just get met with some, frankly, like pretty ridiculous excuses or reasons why we can't do it. And it's just interesting to watch them like self-impose these obstacles and just come up with all the reasons why we can't do it instead of putting any of that effort into trying to get it done. And so I think that's where the visioning comes in. And that's where us sort of leading the charge and showing them what could happen and what could be and how much better this could be is helping. but it is slow. It's slow to change people's minds and people's perspective. It's really truly a culture change, and we're definitely seeing it. We're seeing it change. I think that we have the support of the majority. There is still a small, very loud minority, but I think that's not unique to Highland Falls. I think that's the case in every community that's trying to do this in our country. Oh yeah, Rose, thanks for bringing that up. So 90 years ago, eminent domain happened or took place. I hear almost every single day that West Point took our land and that people are still overcoming the financial fallout from that, which is sort of just a testament to all the things I'm saying. So when eminent domain happened in the 40s, the government bought that land. They bought everyone's land for fair market value. So there really wasn't a financial fallout. It actually might have created an opportunity for some people. So, but just to, no one who is alive today was here for that or owned land for that. And so it's interesting that that has like passed down to generations and is still a concern, but it is. Take leadership up to Warwick. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's plenty of thriving communities. And just like Jeanette said, we're looking at those communities and seeing what they've done to, sort of set an example for us. And what we've seen them all do is create revitalization committees and hire people basically to do what I do, but paid for by the municipality. And so we're trying to get Highland Falls to do that right now too. So I think they're pretty close to appointing a committee and hiring and paying a chair to lead these efforts, which could be a game changer for us. So
and let me just throw another comment in there, Erin. As far as what schools and communities can do, the bottom line, every school like Yale and New Haven or Atlanta in I forget the school that we went to there, but all of those schools in those communities, probably the single most important thing was that school gifted millions of dollars to the community to kind of jumpstart things over a period of like a decade. We specifically looked at like high tier schools with really dysfunctional communities and how they turned it around. And in every case, we were looking at nearly $10 million. And so, kind of following that lead. So when we go out to ask for donations or we go out to look at philanthropic investment, there's a reason for that, because we know that led to the success of these communities. And it's not that the communities are looking for handouts, but quite frankly, we really haven't been the best good partner. We're good partners. West Point is sometimes a good community partner, sometimes depending on, the leadership comes and goes, and it's been dependent a bit on the leadership, whether that be, you might have a great garrison commanders. Some soups say that's the garrison commander's responsibility. Some soups say, no, that's my responsibility. And so there's not ever necessarily a consistent message that the community gets. And so, for example, one decision that a COM makes, and we have a new COM almost every 1 to 2 years, if they decide that they're going to have walking privileges, that changes the economic infrastructure of the town. If the COM the next year decides we're not going to have walking privileges, that makes a change to the town. And we don't prep the town for our change. We don't take that. We haven't been holistically including the town in those decisions. So by creating these positions that Erin's talking about, both on the town side, working with us, and on the AOG side, because the West Point leadership is going to change. So it's really the job of the AOG leadership to kind of brief each command team as it comes in and say, this is going to live beyond you. And so we want to bring you into where we're at in this program and how you can help by, being an advocate and knowing the program and being positive about continuing to grow it. So I think understanding that the fact that the AOG is filling it, is adding that value to the USMA community. It directly impacts our mission of supporting USMA and the Long Gray Line, because now when graduates come back, we have a revitalized community. So it's such a win-win in so many ways. And I think the way Erin is continuing to move the program forward is just going to continue to pay dividends, but it's going to live long beyond most of us. And that's what we all need to understand is we're in it this time for the long run. We didn't come into it this time with a short-term plan. This is meant to last, many strategic plans down the road.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. And that's why I was saying I was very excited that it made the strategic plan, because I think in the past, it's just kind of been something that AOG is doing. And because it hasn't been, it hasn't been a big priority, hadn't been in the past, even at AOG, it was hard to get that momentum with the West Point leaders and the various entities. But that's really changing. And I think every time we present, we brief the soup or athletics, like they're all in support, and it'll continue to improve. And what Jeanette was saying too, like back to the community, one thing I wanted to mention is that the town of Highlands, only 8% of the acreage is paying taxes. So only 8% of the town of Highlands is on the tax rolls. The rest of it is owned by the federal government, the state government, or churches. And so they have a very limited tax base. And that makes things challenging for them. And then, of course, we have a very small main street, a very small business district. So not a ton of opportunity to drive revenue, which is something that we're really trying to teach them to do. And really that's my job, right? To do that. And we're not necessarily investing. We're investing in the community, but we're not giving them money per se. I don't think that our structure would allow us to do that. And because we're not, the challenge with sort of following the models of other institutions is that, AOG is not the school, it's not the college. So we're a little bit more limited, but I think it makes what we're doing even more powerful, because we're activating these things that will allow them to thrive now, but also into the future, just like Jeanette said. So thank you for that. And Rose, thank you for that too. So yeah, some bad feelings. We get that as well. We get some, this idea that we just have these endless deep pockets and we're buying it for our benefit, which just isn't the case. There's not really much, we don't benefit financially from these properties. Almost all of our properties are in the red, as we figure out really how to revitalize and make them worth something. But we didn't get into this to be a landlord, a property manager that was turning a profit or even driving positive revenue. We got in here to buy the strategic properties and do something awesome with them. So, let's see. Highland Falls High School. Yeah, I can't speak much to the high school. And yes, absolutely, Tom. Several pieces to the puzzle. Went through USMA. Oh, that's cool. Frank, your comment about guest instructors at O'Neill. I don't think that happens, but we are going to talk about the Connect program shortly, which has kind of some of those opportunities. So, okay, Amy, can you take me to the next slide, please?
Sorry, it's not advancing. There we go. There we go.
Okay, so as I said before multiple times, it's all about partnerships and activating our convening power. So wanted to share a couple of things. The left of your screen there, you'll see a shared newsletter that was sent out to residents. It's a co-branded newsletter between Hudson Valley Program and the Village of Highland Falls, which I think is pretty cool. The one in the middle was a meeting that we sort of hosted between the Dean's Innovation Team and the Orange County Partnership. And Orange County is really trying to drive a lot of innovation in general, a lot of manufacturing. And so there's some really cool synergies between them and the Dean's team. So it's kind of a little bit at a standstill because of all the transitions coming up soon, but we've been making some good progress. And then on the right-hand side there is a recent newspaper article about a meeting that we did at the visitor center. So I encourage you guys to go look that up and just read kind of how that was reported, because it was really truly like a magical night, and the support that we felt that night was really just a testament to how far we've come. So check out that article. We put on the panel is Mark Beeger. You can't see him. He's kind of blocked by that picture on top. And then the village mayor, Jimmy DeSalvo, and then the garrison commander, Colonel Dan Stewie, and then the town supervisor, Bob Livesey, who was pretty skeptical about a lot of things that we had been doing up until this point. And he said that night that he said that exactly, that he had been skeptical, but he now knows that we have all the right people and we're making great progress. And I think I got 13 text messages that night saying, holy cow, I've never heard Bob say such nice things. And it was really cool that that happened so publicly. So check out that article. It's worth the read. Wait, next slide, please, Amy.
I kind of came in late on the game here, Aaron. I'm not Ann Hall. That's my wife's name. I'm Pete Hall, class 63. But I'm wondering if Buffalo Field, if we could build AOG could work with a developer and build a combination parking and an adjunct to the Thayer Hotel on Buffalo Field. That is not utilized very well. The space there is really not utilized that very well. And I think that could jumpstart something, and it's close enough to the visitor center, and it could tie in with the Thayer as far as, dining with the view of the river. And it might invigorate the Thayer, and it would provide enough, potentially enough on-site hotel space for class reunions to be at West Point is where they ought to be. So I think we could do a lot of business doing something like that, and AOG could lead the way. It would require converting Buffalo Field to a much higher use, but it makes sense to me to start there because Highland Falls just doesn't have a lot of land to develop, frankly. That's the biggest problem.
Yep, I do agree. We're very restricted by the land. None of our efforts have really included anything on Post. We have extended our focus to South Post, which is technically outside the gate, but government-owned land, which we'll talk about a little bit here shortly. But I don't think that we would ever really be able to do much given the constraints of the government. In any short period of time. And so right now, all our efforts are outside the gate. So the Thayer does have a plan to build another hotel, the Thayer Flats Hotel in Highland Falls. So that could be that sort of expansion that you're referring to. And there are some plans in place to affect the parking as well. So those two things will happen outside the gate, which will allow for the community to be revitalized. We can increase the tax base and really draw some change to the community. But none of our efforts include anything inside of the gate.
Well, I will tell you, Hebert Hall is right up the road from the field, and Mikey Stadium is right up the road from there. They need parking. They need all of this stuff. And, sometimes you have to make a compromise, and that something like that would jumpstart. I still think there's probably a lot that can be done in Highland Falls, but frankly, land is the problem. You've got these old buildings there and split up ownership of small parcels here and there, and you don't really have anything that's really close to West Point, close to all the key facilities, other than that area. Unless
I'm going to show you all the things that we are working on that are very close to that. So this slide shows you a picture of that. So that could be something down the road, but I think that the things that we're going to do are a lot similar to what you're talking about, just outside of the gate. Because anything that we do inside the gate does not support the local community, doesn't drive any sort of tax revenue for them, and doesn't do a ton, I don't think, to support the installation in the way that we're trying to do it. And I think we can affect the same change on these sites that I'm going to share with you And that could be something we pursue down the road. So let me brief these next couple of slides, and then we can come back to you, okay? So look at this slide here. This top left picture shows you, a bird's eye view of essentially Main Street coming out of Thayer Gate. So Buffalo Soldiers just to the left of this picture. So you come out Thayer Gate. On the bottom of it, you see these Main Street shops. So that's where we're really focusing our energy right now on a big project I'll share on the next slide. And then South Post is there in the middle. And then on the top left side is the marina. So what you'll notice is that the marina is only about 500 feet from the corner of the visitor center. Now it's 200 feet. It's a little bit of a hike. What that we're working on is activating that marina, turning it back into a marina. It's currently an RV park, and we're trying to get a private company to buy it, develop it. Right now, American Cruise Lines is interested in purchasing and is working with the seller to do so. And they would build a cruise port, but also a dock that you could have a ferry running in and out of. And then from there, we could get them on some cool, some sort of way to get them up that hill. So it could be an incline rail, it could be a funicular, maybe it's a gondola, all things on the table. Bring them up to the visitor center, which we all know is lacking, right? It's just sort of missing what it could be. It just kind of, again, falls short. And so the goal there is to tie it all in. And then once we have so many people go to the visitor center, they're already going there for their tours. They're meeting there for various things, whether it is just their pass, maybe it's a funeral. Lots of things happen in the visitor center. But those people aren't captured, and they're certainly not engaged in any way. So we want to create a more inviting space, create something that's a little bit more intuitive and draws people to certain places. So we could sort of pave that main pathway into something that looks a little bit like the Hudson River. And I envision us like stamping the chain across the river and really starting the storytelling piece there and drawing people across to Main Street, and hoping that just with all of that, instead of coming on post now, they come in, typically people come in, they show up at the visitor center, they get on a bus, they do a tour, they get off the bus and they leave town. Now the goal is to get them to stay and hang out, introduce them to this whole area and all the opportunities that they have to spend some time, spend some money, hopefully stay overnight, and activate that economic force multiplier that I was telling you guys about. So the graphic on the top of this is really, it's not a renovation per se. It's really just an example of what we could do to the exterior of the visitor center to just make it a little bit more welcoming and inviting. So this would be the far left, or like the northernmost side of the visitor center, which is where the visitor control center is, where you go in that one little door and you go down into the dungeon and you get your visitor's pass. I think it makes sense to make that the actual entry point to this place. We can bump out that wall, make it more of a storefront, add an overhang, put some lighting in place, and just activate the outdoor space with outdoor seating, a little bit more green space, a place where people can hang out. And again, I want you all to know this is not like approved or happening or funded or anything like that. This is very much just the vision at this point. So, and then off to the left there is where people would get on and off of this funicular or the incline rail. And we could cover all of that. Obviously, we don't have the greatest weather here, but there could be a covered pathway the whole way there. And then the picture at the bottom is an example of what the visitor center atrium could look like. So right now you walk in there, it's absolutely stunning, huge glass walls overlooking the Hudson. It's beautiful, but it's not utilized very well. And so we want to bring some furniture in there. There's actually not a single place to sit down in the visitor center. From the time that you walk in till you go through the exhibit and the gift shop, there's nowhere to sit down. And it's interesting because that's just encouraging people to get through there very quickly. So that's exactly what we don't want. We want them to hang out. We want them to stay a while. We want them to be comfortable and be relaxed. So our model is all about doing that. So it's about creating this high-end entry and first impression that's truly worthy of West Point, and making this the central orientation hub that teaches people all about the retail, the food and beverage, and the experience that they could have outside of just game days and stuff like that. So, and then lastly, about activating some outdoor spaces and some pathways. Put a Starbucks in there. So that it's a coffee shop is absolutely, it's actually already in the works, even by the Garrison. But we, who actually will run that coffee shop is up in the air. So, but very much so, we would like to put a coffee shop in there, get people to hang out, get their tea, get a sandwich, whatever. And then Rose, yes, that is the lot on Drew. And I'll show you that, I think, on the next slide. Amy, next slide, please. Okay, so I talked about, I don't even know if I talked about this, but our Paramount project. So everybody remembers Shades and Park. So Shades is now Andy's Attic, which is a cute little like antique shop. And Park is still Park. They call it the new old Park. So kind of rebranded, but reopened. And then we also own, AOG bought the property right next to that, which used to be Gracie Market and is now Bean and Barrel. So we are the landlord for all of those businesses. And there are two buildings behind it that are residential on Drew Avenue. Those all make what we call the Shades Park corner. This graphic that you see in the top left is what will be built there in about the next year and a half. And so right now they're going through the planning board. Our developer, it's a grad developer who's partnered with a local developer, Baxter Development, to bring this project to life. So it's 4 stories, mixed use building, all retail on the first floor, retail commercial space on the first floor, 37 apartments above it, mostly 1 bedrooms, a couple 2 bedrooms, and just a few 3 bedrooms. And, we set out to be a catalyst for growth, and we wanted to sort of spur investment. And I think that's exactly what we've done. So since we went to the planning board with this project, 2 other projects have initiated the planning board process. And we've brought 4 businesses to Main Street in about the last year, and 5 others have started since then. So it's great to see that other efforts are complementing ours. Yes, on the superchargers, there's a lot of money for that in New York State. All the electric stuff. So that building will have the superchargers. I believe the hotel will too. And there actually are some, they're not superchargers, but there are chargers in the village right now. So, okay. So this, Rose, back to your question, is right next to the vacant lot, which is on the other side of Drew Avenue, both on Main Street. That has the potential hotel site. So they're still working on getting through their conditional approvals. They need more parking to activate that, or to get their approvals to move forward with that project. So they're applying for pilots and different programs with the IDA to make sure that project can happen, or get that project to come to fruition. So, we're championing that. We don't want to see any vacant lots. We don't want to see vacant lots. We don't want to see vacant storefronts, which is what you see all over Highland Falls. So I think that's the first priority, is to capitalize on what we do have right now, and what we can drive new revenue toward. So, okay. So all about converting passenger traffic into spending visitors. We want to activate this waterfront as a destination in and of itself. And then my vision is that every single thing, like including that coffee shop that we were talking about, is its own attraction. Maybe we'll get a cool steakhouse up here somewhere, and people come from counties away just for a great steak. So I want all of these things to be their own attraction. And then when people get here, they can just hang out and spend time. So, okay. Next slide, please, Amy. All right, so just an idea of what this could, again, we're trying to create this like self-sustaining ecosystem. We don't want this. It's important that I share this with you guys as the people that AOG is always asking for donations from. This isn't meant to be something that donors just pay for forever. We want to create a self-sufficient, self-sustaining ecosystem that fuels itself. right? So if you look at what I was just sharing with you on South Post, pretty much just the visitor center alone, those things that I showed you, the overhang, repaving the pathway, that's a $5 to $7 million build out. And we think it'll cost to operate that whole building and that whole space annually somewhere between $900,000 and $1.3 million, which again is not something we want to ask for donations for on a long-term basis. But I think that there are significant revenue streams here that could not just make this self-sustaining, but also add to AOG's opportunity to do other things as well. So tons of different things we could do in there: retail, merchandise, food and beverage, tours, ticketing experiences, events, advertising, all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, visitor donations. Like, I don't know if you guys realize this, but when you go through the visitor center, never one time does anyone ask you for money, which is probably one of the only places on this entire planet that is the case. So we're going to change that soon and help people understand what it is that AOG funds. The cadet experience in the visitor center talks a lot about the federal government funding that education. And so we really want to play up on the fact that all the enrichment activities are really fueled by the Margin of Excellence and drive some donations from that. And then, yes, Rob, so to your question. So I think that this model and AOG getting into the visitor center opens us up to so much funding that the federal government can't really tap into right now. But if they lease it to a 501c3, or even if it's like some sort of a license or partnership, it will allow us to tap into a lot of the funding. And there is a lot of funding, and there's a lot of focus on tourism as well that we can tap into. So, okay, next slide, Amy. So how many of you guys know about Connect? Has anyone heard of Connect? Jeanette says yes. I knew that. Yes. Okay, Rose says yes. I love to hear that. I know you. I already knew you knew that though, Rose. Okay, so Connect is this super cool program, and it's interesting, Rose, what you had said earlier. Was it you, Penn? About about creating that. I'm going back up. Yeah, the charter school. I thought that was
there were bad feelings when I was there in the late 80s and early 90s. A lot of bad feelings. They tore down a lot of mom and pop shops and expanded Penn and kind of built an ivory fence around it. You know what I mean? Like and it was a pretty dangerous neighborhood. So now you can't touch those properties. It's hard to actually purchase real estate in that. It's called the Spruce Hill neighborhood now. And I mean, it's great, you know, so all the Penn money, Penn teachers, all of that, professors, kids go there, that kind of thing.
Okay. Interesting. So, okay. So I guess it's not quite like that, but so our Connect program is in the the Highland Falls Intermediate School, which is a school right in the village that is for 2nd through 8th grade. And it's every day, every full school day. They meet from 3 to 6 p.m. They get there at 3, they get a little snack, they do homework help, a ton of enriching stuff. They've got gardening club and cheerleading and cooking and all this really cool stuff. And then toward the end of the evening, closer to 6, they get like a heartier snack, which is great because a lot of the target demographic here is very underserved. So the state pays for their breakfast and their lunch, and now they get like they get another snack and almost a dinner. So it's really cool just from that aspect. But it's, you know, it's about supporting the families. It's affecting the schools, the test scores significantly across the board, which is really, really cool to see. And then it's just really helping support this economic growth because it's allowing these parents to work. And I don't know if anybody knows Dr. Greenspan at Keller, but he's actually my PCM, and he wrote a letter today. I didn't know this, but he says that Connect is the reason that he's able to work, and otherwise he would have to be a stay-at-home dad and wouldn't have the ability to serve the West Point community. So it's really cool to see the impact, not just on the students and the kids who are enrolled in the program, but also the parents and what they're able to do as a result of that extra childcare, completely free childcare, 3 hours a day of this isn't just an after school hangout. This is like a programmed, detailed curriculum run by spectacular administrators and teachers who just create such a cool environment for the kids. And you guys can go anytime you want. You can go by there when you're visiting and just stop in and you'll check in. Of course, there's like security and everything, but you check in and they'll get on their little microphone and they'll be like, send me an ambassador. And this like 10-year-old kid comes running down the hallway and like will give you a tour of everything that they're doing and their art walls and things like that. And it's so cool to see them really like step into something that they wouldn't have had the opportunity to do. So, and yes, just like you guys are all saying. So Bill, it is great for the middle schoolers. It's great for the cadets. It's an awesome volunteer experience for the cadets to go over there. A lot of the sports teams go over there and spend time with them too. They do fun Fridays and they just have fun and eat really cool things and hang out with different sports teams. So let's see. Yes, easy for West Point community support. Yeah, and so everything with the Hudson Valley program is like for profit. It's not anything that we've ever collected donations for, with the exception of the Connect program. So this program costs over $500,000 a year to support, and it is the one place that we take donations. So if you're interested in donating, please let me know. All right, next slide, unless anybody has questions on Connect. And then this is
I just want to emphasize, like, because you mentioned Dr. Greenspan, but the restaurant that's here in Cornwall and Hudson, one of the guys who works as a waiter in the restaurant, his two daughters go to the Connect program, and every time we go in there, he talks about how much his daughters have gained confidence, improved their test scores. He absolutely loves West Point because his daughters are doing so much better, and because he and his wife both have to work, and they have odd hours, and so the ability for their daughters to have a safe place to go that they can rely on has been crucial. So I just wanted you to understand that's the majority of our, Dr. Greenspan is like the single dad, but there are a lot of families that, in order to make ends meet, they have to both work. And a lot of them are working, on directly impacting West Point, whether they're, workers, blue collar workers on West Point, or even, a blue collar worker married to an office worker. It just takes two salaries anymore to, put gas in the car and put bread on the table. And so it's really crucial that kids have a place to go, a safe place to go after school. So it has been a huge benefit to the community in so many layers of the onion, both, the West Point cadets who are involved, the West Point community. I mean, honestly, West Point was a little bit jealous of, I would love to see the Connect program actually duplicated at Army posts all across the country. And who knows, maybe societies could look at, maybe it's a leaders conference topic of taking on this idea and this program and providing it at, at bases in, across the country where there's military families. So it's a great idea, and it's been hugely successful here. And part of that is because you have these young people in the military that are also are service oriented and want to give back to their community. So you can do that at, next to any military installation.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Jeanette. I feel like we could talk about Connect all day. Like there's so many amazing things and we could never do it justice, but it does all those things. And you're right. Like there's just like there's not a lot of things outside the gate. There's not a lot of opportunity for cadets to volunteer. So I know they really appreciate the opportunity to do that. And Christine, our Connect director, she buses them out there. She has an arrangement with the garrison commander to make it really easy for them to support it. And it's fulfilling for the cadets too. So awesome. Okay, so this last slide is just sort of a list of all the things that we've accomplished in the past year or so. And again, I think we are just getting started. So that concludes my presentation, unless anybody has questions. I'm going to just share my email address. So if anybody does have follow-up questions,
I think a lot of people ask about questions about the uh, the gravel parking lot space and if that's part of HVP. And I know there's always, usually that's a question we get.
it is a question we get often. It is not an AOG property. It is the extension to the Thayer, or it's the partners at the Thayer Hotel who have purchased those lots, and they've been working through their approvals for the past couple of years.
Do you know if there's any positive movement? Have you heard anything new in terms of their plans?
Well, I do know that their approvals will expire soon, and so they're working hard to get some support. And for full idea of what this looked like, they started their application back in 2019, before COVID, and had a vision for how many people would come and how much it was going to cost. And obviously, COVID threw a major wrench in that plan in terms of tourism and travel, but also in terms of the cost to build. So the initial model compared to what it is now are two very different things. So they're having to go through all the processes again. So whether it'll happen or not, I don't know. It is a tough, that any hotel is hard to fund, and this is a very high end hotel. So it will be challenging, but we would love to see it built there. I think that a lot of grads would love to see it. Joe says, explain the challenges you've had with the village and wins that you've achieved. So I think a lot of the challenges have just been with individual leaders. The previous village mayor had been in office for 30 or so years, with a one-term break. And he was just very, very difficult to work with. We have a new village mayor now, and the relationship is incredibly strong, and he'll say the same thing, not just with us, but with West Point and the Garrison and things like that. So, we're much closer now. We're meeting together. We're having transparent conversations. We're working toward the same vision. I think some of the wins would be, like I said, they're very, very eager to start a revitalization committee. We're pretty close to rerouting the main street so that all the traffic that comes out of Thayer Gate will have to drive past all of the main street businesses. We're working really hard with Joe's help on the Defense Community Infrastructure Program grant to help with some water infrastructure. So that is a very heavy lift, but everyone's coming to the table and ready to work hard for that. And other things like that too, other grant opportunities, other things that we can support each other on. I know I'm missing a ton of them, Joe. Is there anything that you can think of right now?
I think the biggest thing was the planning. That's just the challenge you had with the height and how things were going. I mean, that was just a huge, just getting that through.
Yeah, so that's a good point. The entire, we've revamped the entire village zoning code, like not just tweaked a couple things. Like we revamped the entire thing, like top to bottom. Before you couldn't build anything if you wanted to, but after a couple of years of relationship building and helping them understand the implications of all of it, we finally got it changed. And huge props to Jeanette's husband, Mick, who actually initially hired me. He worked on that for years before I even came on board and really put a ton of that groundwork into place. And, I think if we had to change one or two things, they might have been able to do that in a couple of months, but it was a very, very detailed process and something that most of them didn't really understand. But thanks to all of that, we can actually get these projects to come to light. So thanks for that, Joe.
Well, I don't know if does someone have a question?
Yeah, I was just going to say, doing anything is better than nothing at this point. Would you agree? Just getting some momentum.
Right, right. No, absolutely. And I think that's what we've seen with, as when Erin mentioned that once we put in that application for that project, now others have started. And I think I think a lot of the folks in the community are seeing that we're not trying to become a huge landlord and take over the town. And their concern there is that they're going to lose tax revenue. So you have to understand, their perspective, put yourself in their shoes. One thing I think Erin also did mention, she's not one to toot her own horn, but she's been in this 100% and really, it's kind of like know your enemy, know your friends. And she immediately, even though we were struggling with some of the leadership in town, the older leadership in town, she made it a point to befriend those folks and to kind of gain their trust and their respect. And she went out and the mayor had promised like some Christmas bags to needy families and then couldn't pull it off. And Erin swooped in and said, well, what do you need done? And she rallied a group of people and literally in the middle of the night stuffed these, bags of Christmas. And, I think I might be misspeaking somewhat, but basically pulled this off and kind of helped the mayor save face for a program that he thought he could do and then didn't have the resources to do. So that's just a small thing, but that goes to show that we are a community and we're a team and we're gonna work together. And I think that's the relationship that she's built by working continuously to work to change the code and to show up to the meetings and to just and we met with a lot of the older members of the community. There was a lot of the gray hairs, as you would call them, who really they would meet regularly at the local, place in town or someone's house. And so we, she and Mick both met a lot of those folks and said, tell us what your grievances are and tell us what you want to see the future to look like, when you're long gone and your kids are here. So it's really been a great joining of a collaborative team effort. And I think we're going to see so much change in the next 5 years. We won't even recognize it. And it's great to be at this stage now and just, and we will share the slides and we definitely want you to share this with your classes and your societies, because we want to get the word out that and send your suggestions. I like the suggestion about the parking that was made about maybe Buffalo Soldiers Field, although I will add in that I do know that Buffalo Soldiers Field is one of the few fields that USCC depends on every fall and every spring. It's the one place that you will always see intramural athletics going on down there. And it's also a huge tailgate and parking spot for football games. So it really does get a lot of usage. But I also understand the sense of, well, it's perfectly located. There is a plan to put in, underground parking at the new cyber center. So there's going to be a huge reservoir of parking there as well. So it's definitely something that USMA is looking at. But as we move forward with Hudson Valley Project or program, we know that having a conference center or believe me, we've looked at what Air Force Academy has, their huge conference center. That's what, that's the ultimate goal, is to have a huge hotel conference center that's big enough for an entire class or classes, because we have multiple classes come back for reunions, and have them all right here and not, 45 minutes away on a bus ride.
Yeah,
So,
Jeanette, is that in writing? Is that written down anywhere as a mission statement?
is it, Erin? I mean, we probably should make it that, because that's what makes things happen, because we've certainly talked about it a lot.
Annapolis, the Navy has got an advantage because Annapolis is an historic capital city, so everything works there perfectly. And I don't think Highland Falls is extremely difficult. I think both you and Erin and anyone else that's working on this thing deserve a pat on the back. It's a real challenge, and it's my gut. I'm a long-time real estate broker in California, by the way. My gut tells me that there really needs to be a strong mission statement that is very grandiose in the way that we all talk about the need for having reunions at West Point. To me, that is a very critical thing. I don't know if the Naval Academy is able to do that, by the way. That's something, does anybody here know whether the Naval Academy can have can have a reunion in Annapolis? Do they even have the ability to do that?
There are a couple of this is Bill Taylor 70. I've lived in the shadow of Annapolis, a dozen miles away for 50 years now. In the heart of enemy territory, as the West Point Society of Annapolis calls it. Anyway, there are lots of hotels. There are only a couple of really big ones that can handle a whole class. So it's even a problem in Annapolis. Now, restaurants in Annapolis are another story. Restaurants are tons of them, good ones.
Staff and faculty at the Naval Academy also live. They don't live on post except for maybe the few generals or admirals. They by and large part their staff and faculty live in town. So it's a different animal. And maybe they don't even have reunions. They don't have Founders Days. We have Naval Academy grads coming to our Founders Day. So they're a different animal. We just know that's the fact.
What about the Air Force Academy? Does anybody have any knowledge as to whether they're able to have full class reunions at the Air Force Academy, Colorado Springs?
They are now with their new Hotel Polaris. That's 375 rooms, so it would accommodate most of their reunions. But I think it's important to note that in both of these scenarios, the region is much different. In Colorado Springs has a lot of industry, a lot going on, a lot more people living there, a lot more people visiting there, and same with Annapolis being a city. The reason that someone doesn't just go and build a hotel in Highland Falls is because our reunions can't float those hotels. Our reunions can't keep them in the black over the entire year. So there needs to be a lot more support, a lot more visitors in order to sustain those hotels. And so that's what we're trying to create now, is the foundation that draws people here and gets them to stay. So I do think that you'll see some more of that in the coming years. But until we have more visitors, more people staying and spending money, I don't see us really getting many more hotels or even a lot of restaurants. You know what I mean? They have to follow the money.
And when we started the program initially, the conversation went around the fact that as we build, it's phased, and as we build places to stay and we build the capacity of like the Main Street and some initial hotels, smaller hotels, that over time and kind of educating grads to think about philanthropic investment. How can they give back? We have so many grads that own companies that are part of large organizations that are looking to open up an office in New Jersey or in Rhode Island, or what about Highland Falls? So if we can get people that work in healthcare or in the insurance industry or in defense industry to put an office of something, outside of the First Command and the USAA office that are downtown, what else can we get in terms of grads that are working in business in our country? Can we get them interested in putting office space? Can we build office space, in the lot next to, the hotel down in Highland Falls? So that's where, the program is looking to trying to educate our graduates to give back in ways to its alma mater. Long-term strategy.
I'll just close my thoughts by saying I do think that a visionary mission statement would really point this thing in the right direction, in my opinion. The history at West Point is phenomenal, and I think that a major hotel could actually make it work there. I think it's you guys are way ahead of me in terms of thinking this thing through and the numbers, but I think the potential is there with the amount of athletic events at West Point, with the reunions, um, and with conferences. The Thayer has really kind of got things going here over the last 10, 15 years. But the Thayer is a little bit limited in what it can do. The advantage of the Thayer is it's right on the river, so I could see whatever is done, if it could take advantage of the Thayer's position with looking out on the river. That should be part of the mission statement. Is the Thayer Hotel should definitely be in that. It's a real asset. It's a little limited for a class reunion, but I think if it was augmented with another facility nearby, we might be able to have reunions at West Point. I think that would be a lot of classes would vote for that. We had our reunion, our 60th reunion for class 63 was at the Thayer Hotel.
I think this is Katie. Hi, y'all. I think there's definitely a lot of opportunity, a lot of potential, and a lot more room for this conversation to continue. But we are going to wrap this up for tonight. Thank you all so much for jumping on this call with us. Thank you for all the work you do for your classes and societies, for West Point, for AOG. Thank you, Erin, for being here and for hosting this conversation and for continuing to lead this charge as we work through, as we've seen, this multifaceted issue of the community that we're trying to build and collaborate with outside of the gates here. Thanks, Jeanette and Amy, for being here and hosting us. We will send out the deck and this recording, and Erin has put out her contact information. So if anybody has further questions, we are happy to continue this conversation, and we hope you'll join us for future webinars, no matter what the topic. So thank you all very much.
Well, thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations for doing this.
Yep.
Cheers. Thank you, West Point Association and graduates. Bravo.
This actually could be very important to AOG in the future. The more AOG becomes a really viable business operation, I could see a lot of that probably ought to be part of the mission statement too, frankly.
Absolutely.
Thayer Hotel, AOG, and what we as grads would like to see happen.
Absolutely.
And we all know at our reunions that people always say, it'd be nice to have this at West Point instead of getting on a bus and driving up there. That's really a pain.
Yeah, we hear it. We hear it. We hear it.
And I think that the athletic events there are somewhat problematic also, frankly. Being on the West Coast here in Sacramento, California, 35 years on the board of directors of Northern California West Point Society. But I don't go to athletic events there, but I read enough about it, and a lot of our people go to those events, believe it or not. And anything that's done to really make West Point a convenient and a wonderful experience for people that go to the athletic events, especially the football games there. But hockey in the winter, West Point hockey is fun, and rugby is super fun. So I mean, we've got some real great athletics going on there, and that will bring people. They'd love that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think they're working on, I don't know if Erin got a chance to touch on like the transportation through town and things like that, but there are other projects in the works to, help facilitate traffic through Thayer Gate, and all of that will sort of work hand in hand as these businesses and start to grow and we get investors in and that sort of thing, that driving that traffic to those sporting events through Main Street instead of out and around to Stony, those things will really work hand in hand together. So I think you're absolutely right about that. Definitely a traffic driver.
Well,
Hey,
a
thanks,
lot of
guys. This
good
has
things are
been great. I
happening.
need to drop off.
Yeah,
Thanks,
we need to
Rob.
Cheers.
drop off, but a lot of
Thank
good
you.
things are happening, and we got to thank you people for working on it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being here.
Signing off.
Have a good one.
Say hello to Anne. Sometimes I can't find that little guy walking out the door.
Go that way.